Washington, D.C., 1969. Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, entered a Senate hearing where public television faced a serious threat. The government planned to reduce the proposed funding for educational broadcasting. Rogers had only a few minutes to defend the value of his work. He did not match the pressure in the room. He did not rush, argue, or compete for control. He became completely present. Rogers looked directly at Senator John Pastore and explained how his program helped children understand their emotions, manage anger, and recognize their value. Then he quietly recited the words of a song about controlling anger. The room changed. Senator Pastore stopped treating Rogers as another person requesting money. He began listening to the human purpose behind the request. Rogers demonstrated a form of leadership we often underestimate. Presence is not passive. Presence is disciplined control over what receives access to your attention. Today, other people, notifications, requests, ideas, and unexpected events will attempt to enter your attention. The question is not whether interruptions will arrive. The question is whether every interruption will receive immediate access. Fred Rogers showed us what becomes possible when a leader remains fully present with the mission and person in front of him. What receives your full attention receives your greatest leadership. Today, we guard the gate of attention. I want you to imagine yourself in that room with Fred Rogers. He entered with limited time and little institutional power. He could not control the tension surrounding him with very, very powerful people, but he could control the quality of the attention he brought into the room. His calm presence is what became his authority. So before we discuss interruption today, remember this truth. Leadership begins by deciding what deserves your complete attention. Now, taking command of your attention, as always, I want you to begin by standing, breathing intentionally, and today I want you to declare, I decide what receives access to my attention. As always, we have a one-word intention. Today, my one word is presence, because attention must become a deliberate leadership decision. I want you to name your primary mission, create an execution block you will protect, and identify the person who will benefit when you complete it. Attention becomes meaningful when it serves a mission larger than personal productivity. So as always, you're committing to an action that you are going to complete and share with your colleagues, one person in specific. Now, in episode 8, we focused on identity against confusion. In episode 9, it was judgment against urgency. Today, we are guarding execution against interruption. We want to focus on how the mission can be advanced if we protect our attention. So the first question is, does every demand deserve immediate access? I want you to consider who and what currently possesses automatic access to you. A notification, request, thought, or unexpected question can redirect your attention before you consciously decide whether it matters. And often, this is true throughout our day. So the central question is not whether the demand deserves a response. The question is whether it deserves access right now. Now, getting back to Fred Rogers, you have to imagine in 1969, the room he was walking into, they had smoking in that, building back then, and you had very, very powerful people who were very antagonistic to the idea of government-funded education. So the enemies in the room were many, and Rogers shaped the room by not bowing to the pressure, skepticism, or competing interests, he did not adopt the room's hurried emotional rhythm. Instead, he focused on slowing the conversation down and gave Senator Pastore his full attention. That presence that he communicated was confidence, sincerity, and respect before his words completed the argument. And that attention changed the room. So, thinking about what Rogers was able to achieve, the most important thing was that he did not speak with any loud, boisterous sort of tone. He was calm. He used sincerity, clarity, and focused on what the communication needed to be. So, again, looking at how Rogers was able to complete his argument, what was left unsaid was used in body language by being calm and present. Now let's look at interruption as the enemy. Interruption isn't automatically wrong. Leadership requires responsiveness when life, safety, trust, or the mission faces a genuine threat. However, unexamined interruption that receives immediate access is what we are guarding against. When access becomes automatic, the chosen mission loses continuity, and activity begins replacing completion. And that is where you see leaders often becoming firefighters, chasing after every problem. The core distinction is looking at urgency and how pressure is created by telling you that something cannot wait. Interruption gains access by breaking into your attention before the demand proves its importance. So acknowledge the demand, and without automatically obeying it, look at the value of the request. Pressure may deserve examination, but it does not deserve unconditional authority. So if we think of presence as commanded attention, this is your leadership principle. It does not mean that you're remaining available to everyone and everything. It means that you're giving complete attention to what the most deliberately chosen activity is. And people should experience you in this moment of presence, not as permanently accessible, but intentional with your boundaries, how you protect your work, and how you improve the attention you give when engagement truly matters. One of the ways that we do this, looking at the attention gate, is the ability to classify things before we comply with them. So distinguishing between what is critical, what is important, and what is optional. We know that critical is those matters which you must act now to protect life, safety, mission, trust, or irreversible value. When it's important, it's something that deserves attention, but it does not necessarily mean you have to make a decision or give it attention right now. And when it's optional, you can always delay it, put it off, delegate it to someone else, decline it altogether, or just release it. It's not yours. So the algorithm for today is the access interruption filter. This is where we acknowledge, classify, and compare, recognizing the interruption without obeying it, determining its level, and comparing it with the mission already under execution. And then we establish, communicate, and secure. When we decide when the matter will receive our attention, communicate the boundary, and deliberately secure our return to the original work, then is when we can change direction. The operating system installation for today is called Attention Command Capacity. So here we're looking at the ability to control what receives access to your focus, time, and energy while remaining responsive to legitimate leadership needs. This capacity strengthens judgment, boundaries, presence, trust, and completion. Every protected block builds your ability to remain with a chosen mission when competing demands appear. So again, when you're in a meeting and something critical that needs your attention comes up, it's your ability to recognize the level of critical need that's required. Is it something that needs your attention right now, or is it just a critical need that's important and can be, delayed for a short period of time or delegated to someone else? So one of the things to do today is to reflect on who has unrestricted access to you. I want you to identify one person, notification, recurring request, or internal thought that repeatedly breaks into your execution. I'm not asking you to judge it. I want you to recognize and make the access pattern visible. Once you do that, try to write it down. Identify the boundary or process that should govern that access. What remains unexamined that will continue controlling your attention? Going back to the objective of today and the practice that I want you to focus on, your execution block, okay? Focusing on your primary mission and what is going to be the action in that block that you are going to focus on. You're going to define what's critical, select where you will capture interruptions and just redirect them and communicate the boundary to everybody why this is important. Again, my word for today is presence. Today, I'll give my complete attention to what leadership has chosen. Presence protects mission, presence strengthens the relationship, and presence turns attention into leadership. When your mind leaves the mission, return without self-judgment. Presence is not permanent perfection. It's the disciplined practice of returning attention to its rightful place. And finally, I want you to measure the evidence to prove that the gate held by completing that one execution block, capture and classify the interruptions and write them down, delay one necessary response, communicate one boundary, and advance or complete the primary mission and post that online, share it with a coworker or a partner, and help them to help you by recognizing the value of presence. Building a resilient culture does not mean eliminating communication. It creates clear rules for access, escalation, response times, and protected work. When we share with another person how we want to protect attention, we help them the same way. So before interrupting, we ask whether the matter truly requires them or whether you can capture, schedule, delegate, or resolve it yourself. And finally, every interruption has a cost. Think about it in terms of both your time and your energy. It requires your mind to stop, switch, process, decide, and then reconstruct the original command. So today, I want you to focus on how you capture the interruption, classify the demand, command the access, and return to the mission. And when you do that, I want you to discuss it with, again, one person so you can think about what that cost was. Tomorrow, we will confront the accumulated price of fractured attention, which is depletion, is the enemy. Again, I'm your host, Jason Safford. Today, we guard the gate of attention. Not every demand deserves immediate access. Not every notification deserves a response. And not every interruption deserves obedience. Protect your energy, protect your attention, and preserve your energy. Complete your mission. And as always, win your day.